Well, it is currently 20 to midnight on this Wednesday evening. We are slowly and surely, Ryan, over here on my channel, becoming the kind of Sky Sports News, the live Sky Sports News for everything Celtic related. It's not been my intention to turn the channel into a Fox News breaking story sort of area where we talk about things into the wee hours of the morning. But with the current situation we find ourselves in at Celtic Football Club, it's very hard to avoid doing these things live and talking about the big situations and, just getting everything out there in the open while it's all very raw and emotional. Now, I would like to clarify before we start talking about the news that has just broke over the past hour, before we go any further, this isn't going to be the content forever on this channel. Once Celtic are back to normal, we have a manager, it'll be back to regular resume podcast, videos with effort in them. I'm not going to continuously cop out with live streams at anything at 11:30 at night. But we've got to talk about these big issues because it's becoming a joke, Ryan. And of course, with a lot of this business now being directed over in Australia and Japan, we're going to have to be used to having these stories at this time of night. So for the people I can see in the chat saying, what time do you call this? Let me get to sleep. I do extend my apologies, but it's all we can really do at the moment. As you can see, I'm joined by Ryan McGinley on the right-hand side of the screen. As we were talking before we started the stream, you're going to have to be a little bit quieter, but we've got a lot to talk about once again, Ryan, mate.
Yeah, it's another. It gets to half 10 at night, and it's another embarrassing sort of story that comes through the exclusives in the Sun and the Daily Record. He doesn't have the correct coaching badges necessary to managers, which is just a bit embarrassing, really. I mean, we're going through a rebuild which we've never seen before to this sort of magnitude. And he doesn't even have the coaching badges that we need. I know he's based in Australia, but I mean, it's a bit embarrassing, isn't it?
Yeah, look, this isn't exactly news to us, this part, is it? We all knew, I think the rumours were there that Ange Postecoglou didn't possess the correct badges to be a coach in Europe. He didn't have the Continental Pro licence, I believe they call it, that most of our top managers across Europe do. This situation was compared to the same as Steven Gerrard, who came to Rangers and he didn't have his, but he was in the process of getting his, which meant it was easy enough for him to come and manage Celtic. However, UEFA have given clarification over the past sort of couple of hours that is not going to be the case with Ange Postecoglou. So it's not so much that he doesn't have the coaching badges that is the news in this situation. The news in this situation, Ryan, now is that this is a process that, as the three-letter named publication are going on to say, could take weeks. Ryan, Celtic don't have weeks. This is yet again a farcical situation that the board have landed us in and creates even more drama that we don't need in a season that's been full of it at a point where we need serious fixing.
Look, we should have appointed a manager about 2 months ago, so already we're behind when it comes to preparations for next season. We're back in training in, what is it, under 20 days now. We don't even know who. We don't have a director of football. We don't have a manager. We don't have new players in the door. We don't know who's going to be staying or who's going at the club. The whole season is just, it feels as if it's a write-off before it's even begun, rather. It's utterly embarrassing. We cannot wait 2-3 weeks for a manager to come in the door when we've already waited 2-3 months for Eddie Howe, and that went down the shitter, which I'm still quite gutted about, to be honest. As you know, I'm still holding out that a miracle happens. But no, it's what I'm not prepared to wait for this sort of manager when I was prepared to wait for Eddie Howe for 2-3 months, and then that didn't happen. The whole point of Postecoglou coming in was the fact that he was in advanced talks and he was going to come in straight away. We were supposed to sort of make up for that lost time, but it doesn't look as if that's going to be the case now either. It's a complete nightmare. And it's embarrassing in a season full of embarrassments. And I keep on saying that again and again, but it's another one, and it's drifted into the post-season when it was supposed to be finished with the end of this season. More and more embarrassment.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, we've already got to the point where I feel like Celtic had to get to a panic decision for a manager. It wasn't an Eddie Howe. It wasn't a big name. We were going for someone who really was never intended to be anywhere near the Celtic job. That was already the panic. Now, to put the whole process on hold for 2 to 3 weeks so that he can come in for a second choice, and to be honest, is it highly believable he was the second choice? You're talking about a guy here who, at the end of the day, has been dubbed second choice, could have been more than that. Do we have the time? Do we have the resources? Do we have everything there to put it on hold for 2 to 3 more weeks? I don't think so. That would be shambolic. But then at the same time, you weigh up the other side of that and go, do we have other candidates ready on the go that will take less than 2 to 3 weeks, right? This is the hole that Celtic have dug themselves.
This is what worries me, because I don't think we do have any other options at this point. I don't think we've interviewed anyone else, or if we have, we're not interested in giving them the job. Maybe they didn't have the attributes that were needed for the Celtic job. Like Roy Keane was interviewed, but I don't think he was ever a favourite to get the job. The thing that worries me is that they could masquerade Postecoglou coming in, and then they could have Gavin Strachan and John Kennedy sitting there. They'll take the team for the first couple of weeks, and then he'll come in through the door. That will not wash with Celtic fans. Celtic fans want Kennedy and Strachan out the door. No, it's got potential for civil unrest, I feel, to be perfectly honest.
I love that term, civil unrest, because that's exactly what it is at Celtic at the moment. The relationship is broken enough between the fans and the board. It just feels like it can't get any worse, but it certainly will if things go the way they're going and we hold off for another 2 to 3 weeks. We are approaching 100 days without a manager. No top cut. People are laughing at Spurs for going 62 days, I think it is, or something now, without a manager. They're in the 60s anyway. I'm lucky that we are not in one of those big 6 leagues at the minute, because we'd be the laughing stock of Europe with the way that we are handling our business at the moment.
I still think we are.
Still could say we are. For the people who have just kind of joined the stream, here we are late at night. Thank you very much. For the people who might be lost in everything that's going on, then I'll give a quick bit of clarification and a little bit of verbatim information as to the situation with Celtic at the moment. So, as I've already said, the article came out earlier tonight saying that Celtic have now appealed the UEFA's decision about the work permits and the coaching badges and everything, trying to use the 25 years of experience that he's racked up to give him an exemption. The article has basically all but confirmed that he is the man. It's who Celtic want in the door, and it was about to be the door bar this. UEFA have given a spokesperson forward to say that it'll be a lengthy process leaving the boss in limbo. A UEFA spokesperson said Mr. Postecoglou does not currently hold a UEFA Pro licence. A recognition of competence procedure has been initiated. I know you want to talk about that, Ryan. So a recognition of competence procedure has been initiated. The process could take several weeks. We don't have any further information to provide at this stage. So 25 years of experience, a recognition of competence procedure has been initiated, Ryan, is not the words you want to hear when appointing your club's next manager.
I've got to be honest, and I might get funny responses in the comments or that, but that's something we laughed about, that sort of thing, that fit and proper sort of way of looking at things. We laughed at that when Dave King was getting talked about for being the Rangers chairman, or whatever he was, the CEO or whatever. It's a bit embarrassing, really, that we have to go through all of this for a manager. I'd much rather bite the bullet and get someone in that's less, well, not less controversial, but less problematic. We need an answer now in terms of who's coming in. I mean, it looks as if Postecoglou is the main man for the job. If that's the case and they desperately want him in, then I might be willing to wait a couple of weeks, because then they've got their man that they wanted in the first place, or maybe not the first place, but the second place. But no, it's all a bit embarrassing, and I didn't think many things would embarrass me after everything that we've been through over the past week. But this is just another thing that's just yet another PR disaster, you could say again.
Yeah, very big shout out to Russell for a moment, who's donated £2 saying, here comes Keane. Don't get me started, because I was saying it as soon as Ange was announced as the front runner for the job. I said I still have a gut feeling that Roy Keane will end up through the door.
We've done a whole live on that.
We've done a whole live on that, of course. Yeah, it's utterly embarrassing. And look, I started to warm to the idea of Ange a little bit. And I didn't want. I was quite critical of those piling abuse on the guy. Kieran Old made a very good point in the podcast about the kind of superiority complex that we usually suffer from the English and how that was now becoming us. There was certainly positive lights towards Ange, but it was still very forced. It was very forced. He wanted to do it. It wasn't even like it was just not even want. So that's the wrong word. You had to. You didn't want to. You had to look for these positives rather than want to look for them. Now the embarrassing part is that word there, those words, a recognition of competence procedure. This is Celtic Football Club. This is a club that is one of the biggest in Europe. They should not have to go through that for the sake of their next manager. It makes you really worry about where we're going as a club when that happens. And one thing we've not even touched on in regards to the potential collapse of the Ange Postecoglou move is Fairgo Harkin is no longer coming to Celtic. That looks finished as well. We're not getting the man who was dubbed as a surefire director of football for the last 3 months. Neither are we getting Eddie Howe, and now neither it looks as though we're getting Ange Postecoglou. So the question is, Ryan, number one, if Ange Postecoglou was to come now, does it make sense without that city link of Fairgo Harkin? And number two, if we don't get Ange, we don't get Fairgo, and we didn't get Eddie Howe, where the hell even are we? And before you answer, very big shout out, €2 to Padre McFadden. At least stuff might come weekend. We'll save that for the end. I can't polish a turd. A big shout out, by the way, as well. Plexi Blocks, a $5 donation. I wouldn't be surprised if Kennedy remains interim coach for the qualifiers. Honestly, wouldn't stun me either. That's something that we can come on to as well. But in regards to what I've just said there, Harkin doesn't come, then this move for Ange Postecoglou starts to make a lot less sense, doesn't it?
Makes a lot less sense on one point with the City group. You would have thought that the Fairgo Harkin and City group would make it obvious that was going to be a connection, a sort of relationship that could work. That was one of the only reasons why I would have taken Postecoglou as Celtic manager, if he had Fairgo Harkin working alongside him and maybe above him in terms of getting transfers in, so that Postecoglou can then do the coaching side of it. But with Fairgo Harkin not coming in, and I know I've read things about him not being qualified. Look, we interviewed the guy. He must have been qualified if we were interviewing him. Because we've obviously shortlisted them as one of the ideal candidates for the job. So that just looks like a bit of revisionism from some of Peter Lawwell's spin doctors that are in the media just now. I'm trying to think. It's a bit of an embarrassment not getting Fairgo Harkin through the door, and I don't like the revisionism that's going on regarding it. There's been a lot of people online now saying that he was underqualified for the role. He was never the man for the job. It's funny that
personally going on about that to me. I guess you've got something to say here.
It's just funny that, because we heard that Fairgo Harkin was the best thing since sliced bread from the same outlets that were saying that he wasn't qualified for the job only a couple of months earlier. So what's changed in the past couple of months? Has he done something spectacularly bad to merit these sort of drops in merit? I don't think so. I just think he's staying put, and we're trying to look for a sort of like moral victory or sort of like a PR victory, but it just looks bad when we come out with that. I'm trying to think about what you said for your second question there. Where do we go?
That's just think about it, and shout out to Lawrence, who's donated £2 and saying the UEFA Pro stuff is rubbish. He has an AFC Pro, which is I'd imagine he would have the equivalent over in Oceania that he needs to manage there. It's just a matter of UEFA not allowing that to translate over to the European continent, which is annoying, but a lot more conversation to come on that. But the second question that I had, and the point that really worries me is, how collapses. Your first choice man collapses. That's bad enough. Your director of football then collapses. These were two guys who were surefire for 3 months. And now your second choice, who I still genuinely don't believe was the number one second choice, collapses as well. I am very, very, very worried as to where we stand as a football club.
I think it's resignation territory for a number of people, including people that may have not even taken their post at the job, because I still think they're culpable for this.
Can I hold my hands up right now? And I laughed last night when you suggested to me, here, by the way, I wouldn't mind that £2 donation from Lewis Laird, announced 118 McGinley management to you. Well, I tell you, if we were given the opportunity, I'd want Lewis in there as well. He'd be head of youth development. We'd be bringing Lewis Laird in. But You said to me last night that you had a very, and I won't throw out your exact words because I don't want to throw you under the bus unless you choose to do it, but you were very critical of Don Mackay. I've had 24 hours to think over it, read other opinions, look at other things, and I am now also very critical of Don Mackay. This is a very bad situation to be in and a very bad way to start your career as the chief executive officer of Celtic Football Club. Even if you've not officially started it, this shouldn't be happening. And there's a lot of people, and this isn't just directing it towards Don Mackay, not in a million years. I hope that when he officially takes over, he gets that time and he gets to make decisions himself, that he changes it, he turns it round. But right now, around that whole boardroom, they should be hanging us heads in shame, and there should be serious considerations of resignation. And I think you're right in saying that, Ryan.
Yeah, and I'm not just putting Dominic Mackay under the bus, because I think there's other board members that have been there for far too long. You see some of the names, he's heard some of the things that were coming out of the fans forum, and it's like, they do not speak for us. Like, I know they might represent us in terms of a board sense, but they don't represent us on an ethical scale. No, I think 2 out of 2, if we can't get Eddie Howe, our number one target, in the managerial role, and then if we can't get Fairgo Harkin in our number one director of football role, I think 2, never mind 3 strikes near it, I think 2 strikes. I just think that they're lucky that we're under restrictions still and we can't gather in force, because I feel like a lot of fans would be gathering outside right now. I mean, they would have been gathering for a lot less, but even more so now. It's just embarrassing. I'm utterly embarrassed at this. We are, in 2 minutes' time, it'll be 100 days since Neil Lennon left the club, to be fair.
But when we get the party poppers back out again for celebrating 100 days, eh?
I know we were celebrating them going through, and we thought that this was going to be like a new start and that. And it's, in a way, I'm happy that this is all happening, because it really highlights how badly the board are. It's difficult to say that, because I hate seeing my club struggle, but at the same time, these board members have got away with far too much for far too long, and they've been getting away with it because we've been winning titles and winning trebles. Now that we are not winning trebles, it's become abundantly clear that they are not fit for purpose, and I want them out the door.
That's like a podcast clip right there. That's the clip that I use to advertise the podcast. I can't disagree with anything that you've just said there. I really can't. To end off, we've been live for almost 20 minutes now. I try my best not to go too much over the half-hour mark. So to kind of round off tonight's stream and to just bring it back to Ange Postecoglou for a minute and the potential chance of a collapse. Let's look at this article for a second and talk about where they think the club could be heading if we continue to pursue the move of Ange Postecoglou. Now, this article is saying that if Ange Postecoglou, we still go for him, of course, this could take 2 to 3 weeks, which is time we quite frankly don't have. We've been through that. But they're talking about sending the team to training with Strachan, with Kennedy, guys who shouldn't be at the football club. And they're talking about as if that's a possibility that Celtic could be genuinely considering. That, to me, Ryan, as well, along with everything we've already discussed, is incredibly terrifying. This is a rebuild. When we finished the 2020-21 campaign and we were talking about a rebuild, I expected our players and anybody else who was involved in the rebuild of next season to be going to training with the people who shouldn't be part of the rebuild. And they could potentially be walking into Lennoxtown with John Kennedy and Gavin Strachan as the head of the operation. That is another terrifying thought for me.
Yeah, it scares me as well, but at the same time, it doesn't surprise me. It's like a mixture of the two. Like, well, I'm not that surprised, actually. No, Kennedy and Strachan should be gone. I mean, I wanted to give Kennedy the best possible chance, because he was following in the footsteps of arguably one of the worst managerial reigns ever, in terms of this season anyway. Yep. I know he done well last season, but this season was a complete disaster given the magnitude of the season. Kennedy won 4 games in 10. He needs to go out and be a big boy and ply his trade somewhere else. He can't stay at Celtic forever. I know he's got a job for life, as they called it when he retired, or after a couple of years. They said, I think it was Peter Lawwell that said he had a job for life. That's just incompetence.
Very much. It's this kind of summary of the definition of the word negligence, isn't it?
And you can see why, because in one way that's like a verbal sort of promise. The fact that we had a verbal agreement with Eddie Howe is the reason why we're in this mess, because we didn't get him to sign. We took a guy's word, not knowing that, well, we kind of knew that there was other clubs interested in that and different factors, but we took his verbal agreement as gospel. There was nothing written down, and then we go back to it in the end of June, the start of June, end of May, and he doesn't come. Like, it's this incompetence that is costing us at every turn. I am counting down the days until Peter Lawwell leaves this club, because over the past 3-4 years he's been a complete leech. For the amount of money that he is earning a year, and in bonuses as well, and his heated driveways and whatever, he's really hurt Celtic in a lot of ways, and it's just, it needs to end. It just needs to end after this. He can't even go into the background, into like a chairman's role or a non-executive director. He's got to go. It's festered.
This is the problem Celtic have been in for years. There's people on that Celtic board who have been there from the 90s through the 2000s, through everything, and it's archaic. You know, it shouldn't be the case for Celtic. We should be developing and moving forward, and we're not going to get that with guys like that still on the board making the decisions that we're seeing right now and landing us the position that we're currently in.
Somebody's made a good point there in the comments as well. They said if Ange was the second choice in advanced talks, this application would have been done months ago. Yeah, I thought this was in advanced talks. You would have thought this would have already been done and looked over.
Yep, you'd think they would know this. And is that just another sign for you, Ryan, that points towards a clueless board, the fact that this is now a stumbling block when it should have been identified throughout the advanced talks?
I wouldn't even say they're a clueless board. They're just a board not fit for purpose whatsoever. They are grossly out of their depth in terms of this rebuild. They've never been through a rebuild as big as this before. We need people on the board that are going to look at the interests of Celtic as on the pitch as well as off the pitch, because it seems like all our decisions have been sort of looked upon as whether to get a profit or not, when that's not helped us at all. I don't go to bed at night. I've said this before. I don't go to bed at night thinking, we get such a good profit on this player. At the end of the day, we look at strikers on the pitch and midfielders running the game, and it's going downhill fast. The way I just feel like I'm ranting now, but I don't want anything more to do with this board. There needs to be a clear out. Something needs to happen, because it feels as if it's just a reskin rather than a rebuild. I don't feel as if I'm just scunnered.
There's only two more things that I think now to talk about to end off the stream that we have to do, and we've already touched on this one, so this can be done rather quickly. But Ange Postecoglou, with all of this happening today, for you, Ryan, because we've been very limbo with this, haven't we? We've been back and forth. We've tried to look for the positives, and we've also acknowledged the overwhelming negatives of an appointment like Ange Postecoglou. We've been brutally honest about it. We've all also tried to be optimistic about it, and almost, you could say, respectful about it, because I know a lot of people have been getting a lot of negativity thrown towards him for being so negative about him. So we've tried to be as positive as we possibly can. But this tonight, this article that's broke here about him potentially not being able to come to Celtic, does it just further highlight to you that this is not the man for the job?
If he was the manager of the job, this should have been done months ago. I would have been a lot more encouraged by the appointment of Postecoglou if the whole Eddie Howe deal didn't happen, or if that was cut off about a month or two ago, if we still did have time going forward. The fact that this is happening now and we have to wait 2 or 3 further weeks to get a manager in the door to start doing his work, when this work should have been done 8 or 9 weeks ago, it just stinks of incompetence again. I would have been more encouraged if it was a couple of months ago. It should have been a couple of months ago. It wasn't. I know this is the hand that we're dealt with now. I don't think he's the manager for the job now that I think about it. I've been back and forth over the past couple of days. But see in your head when you're thinking, I don't want this to go through, then that's just my opinion. I don't...
Yep, it's kind of like they always say, if you doubt it, then you don't believe in it. It shouldn't be, and it's just like, if you doubt it for a second, it's not meant to be. You know what I mean? It's like that.
This is the thing. I had no doubts about Eddie Howe. That's how good an appointment it was going to be, and I hate mentioning him because it angers me, and I just hope that somehow he changes his mind and comes back up the road with his tail between his feet or legs.
I'd accept him running back if it was a possibility. Trust me.
Absolutely, I don't think it will. No. I think there's just too many factors going against it. But it's one of those ones again where people said, "Oh, if you're going to sack Lennon, who would you replace him with?" I'm like, it's not our job.
Mhm.
The board should have a short list of managers.
These are
Managers that are available.
These are the businessmen.
Managers that have
businessmen.
Managers that have the specific requirements to do the job. Like, come on, this is like, you'd laugh if Tesco or something had done this. If they brought in somebody without like a national insurance number or whatever. So why is it happening at Celtic?
Oh, good. I like that. And the final question is, if this does collapse, which is looking like it could be likely, at the same time, it's very mixed reading in this article, because at the start of it, you're like, oh, well, surely that's it done. But then when you get towards the end, it's like, nope, I fully believe Celtic will shove the team into training with Kennedy and Strachan and wait for him to come through the door. So it's a bit weird. But if it does get to the point where this collapses and Ange Postecoglou isn't coming to Celtic, where the fuck do we turn? We've seen talk of Rui Faria today, of course. If people don't know the name, Jose Mourinho's former assistant manager for years, as we talk of him. There's always the talk of Roy Keane. People we might be forced into looking down the options of Jack Ross. Genuinely, I am worried. Where does Celtic go if this does collapse?
This is the thing, because I feel like in between Eddie Howe and Postecoglou, there's a number of great managers. If you actually do your research and check who is available, you've got that guy that was at Rennes, Julian Stefan.
Yes,
he's still available. Like, he done a great job at Rennes. He was doing wonders there. He's still out of work at the moment, and he would have the qualifications. That's obvious. He works in France. Even looking at, I mean, if you don't ask the question to Nuno, I know he's interested in Everton, that might not happen. But if you don't ask the question and you don't get an answer,
exactly, it's the same as, like, Christophe Galtier has just left Lille, and this is me saying that Celtic could get Christophe Galtier. I'm sure he'll be on to bigger and better things now that he's just won Ligue 1 in France. But that's a guy who was apparently a surefire for the Nice job, is now not in the Nice job once again, and he's the kind of guy, don't ask a question, don't get an answer. There's plenty, and I'm not saying him in particular, because I'm pretty accepting that he would never come to Celtic, but along those lines, there are plenty of managers in that situation where you have to ask the question, right?
But at the same time, I don't know what any manager in their right mind who would take this job at the moment. There seems to be a disconnect. Well, there definitely is a disconnect between the supporters and the fans. Not the supporters and the fans, same thing. The supporters and the board and the team itself. But I think there could be a split in the boardroom as well. I mean, this is Lawwell's man at the end of the day, Postecoglou. The links all point to Peter Lawwell, which, again, you're like, why is he getting so much choice over the next manager when he's out the door in a couple of weeks? Shouldn't it be Dominic Mackay that has the sort of main role in securing the manager, since he's going to be working so closely with him over the next couple of years? So I don't know if you'll hear more about that, but those are the sort of rumours that I've heard, that there has been a split in the boardroom between the two. I don't know how true they are, but it would be mental if that was the case. I just want Dominic Mackay to be his own man at the end of the day, and sort of separate himself from Peter Lawwell, because this bedding in period doesn't seem to be helping or doing much good. I'd like him to take the bull by the horns and just implement his own ideas into the team. I don't know if he can do that contractually yet, but that's what I would like to see. Personally, I would put Peter Lawwell in gardening leave until the end of the month to stop him making any more awful decisions.
Well, Kieran Ald's piping up in the chat. He's saying Neil Francis Lennon to come in and steady the ship. Look,
I will never be that desperate.
There was somebody last night. Of course, Kieran's at the wind-up. Let's just clarify for the viewers right now. Over 900, by the way. Insane at this time, at 10 past midnight. Absolutely insane. Thank you very much. But, I heard somebody the Super Scoreboard last night, and they're like, Sam Allardyce to come in and steady the ship, right? There is no ship to be steadied. The ship has long fucking sailed. The ship, in fact, has sunk to the depths. into the depths of the deep blue sea. That is where the ship is. We don't need a manager to steady a ship. We need a manager to come in and salvage it. We need a manager to come in and start the rebuild of the ship, not to steady it. And hearing names like Sam Allardyce and such thrown out is another one that reeks of absolute desperation. So I'd like people to assess those kind of suggestions before they actually go ahead with them. Ryan, we'll be coming to the end. Have you got anything else you'd like to throw in there? I see you were ready to speak, but I'm ready to wrap up if you've got anything you'd like to throw in.
I just think about all this talk about a manager coming in. I think we need a structure to sort of sustain the long-term future of Celtic as a sort of contender in Scotland, to be honest, because it seems as if the team across the city are doing all the right things with their shares and their different initiatives, and we're posting rubbish on Twitter every day. Like, you don't hear any sort of forward thinking in terms of the plans. All you hear is, sign up for a season ticket. I mean, look at the pinned tweet. The pinned tweet is still Eddie Howe won't join Celtic. That looks terrible from a PR perspective. So every time a fan clicks on that, you'll see, we never got the deal done for our number one target. It just looks awful. Something needs to change, and quickly. And see, to be honest, I would much rather wait. Instead of waiting 2-3 weeks for Postecoglou, I'd much rather wait 3 or 4 weeks for when we're not a proper manager, like maybe a manager that's at the Euros, such as Martinez and Maloney. That would make more sense to me than Postecoglou. I'd much rather wait for a sort of like real deal, tried and tested European name than anyone else. But that's just my thoughts on it.
Well, I'm going to bring us to the end of the show. Celtic, once again, landing themselves in a situation that only Celtic could by this year's standards. We continue to dig ourselves into an unescapable hole. I am, quite frankly, scunnered by the entire situation. Quite frankly, tired of the entire situation. I'm tired of having to come on and do live streams with breaking horror news stories rather than positive, upbeat videos, which I enjoy to make and edit. But it's what we're being forced into at the moment, as we don't have a clue where the club is going. Tomorrow, me and Ryan will be back on the channel live as well, along with Kieran Auld. We'll be on doing a phone-in special for subscribers of the channel who want to phone in and have their say on everything that's happening at Celtic at the minute. This could be a feisty one, Ryan. It could be one that
could be the best one, yeah.
It's got a lot of room for suggestions, for reactions, for everything. If you want to check in and watch that, we'll probably be going live on the channel around 7 o'clock tomorrow night for the phone-in. If you want to get involved in the phone-in, then very simple. You need to go into Twitter. Make sure to follow the podcast page at Celtic Podcast. That's SELLIK Podcast. Check out the tweet that will be put up tomorrow morning. I will be offering out 6, 7, 8 spaces to callers for tomorrow night's show. If you want to come on and talk on about anything you want, feel free. Ryan Fall, thank you for the £2, my man. Love you, mate. Kieran Auld, as he says, tell your dads to get on and argue. That's what Kieran Auld wants. We want to hear people coming on and talking about Sam Allardyce and talking about Roy Hodgson and all these bizarre names for us to react to. So we will be on live tomorrow night for the Celtic the Thunder live. First ever live phone-in, must I say. Thank you to everybody who has been watching tonight. For this time of night to hit over 900 viewers is absolutely insane. And hopefully we'll have some positive news at some point. Ryan, thank you very much, mate. I appreciate you coming on. And we'll see you all tomorrow night again. Take care.